Good evening.
Good evening.
Look who's back.
Hi guys. I'm excited.
I am glad to have you back. This is the first
I
time
miss
this year.
everyone.
This is the first time this year, right? You've been. I was thinking about this. First time this year, Shadeen has been with me. Actually, we haven't even done this that often, but
Yeah.
you're here with me today, and
Yes.
I, for one, am very excited that
I'm
she is
excited.
back. Good evening, everyone. I just bypassed everybody and I went straight
No,
to
we
Shadeen.
said good evening.
Yeah, I know. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Whether you are joining us live
Yes.
or whether you are watching at another time, in the evening, on lunch break, traveling, on the bus, train, tube, whatever. Thank you so much for hanging out with us as usual. It's a joy, it's a privilege, it's an honor, it's a pleasure to have you live in your living rooms, bedrooms, wherever you are on this hot Sunday.
Oh my god.
Um, and I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us. Wifey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm excited.
You're
I'm
back.
happy.
Yes.
I missed everyone. I missed doing this, guys. So I'm overexcited.
Good. Look, we are in a really exciting subject to discuss. And I, for one, have so far enjoyed what we've been talking about. But before we go into any further discussion, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping and just give you a little bit of context about what's happening over the next couple of months here at Deeper Well Assembly. In the month of July, we are going to be in discipleship classes. Every Sunday in July, alternate in person and online, we're going to be beginning our discipleship classes hosted by Belonging at Deeper Well. Our discipleship classes is essentially education hub. It's our opportunity to raise disciples, become disciples, learn more about our God. And I'm really excited about this. And this is our moment of study. It's our moment of education. So please come and hang out with us. We're going to have a really good time. And then in the month of August, we have our month of prayer. And so every single day in the month of August, we will be praying, and we are going to be bringing our petitions before the Lord for the entire month. Now, anybody who's not used to doing an entire month of prayer, consecutively or whatever the case is, not to worry. We will roadmap you through this. We will baby step you through this. It's a while since I've done it, admittingly. I'm just going to throw it out there. It's a while since we've been on a journey like this, but it's necessary for this time and season. And so we're going to get some more materials out shortly concerning our month of prayer and also concerning our discipleship classes too. And that's going to be really exciting. So be a part of it. Come and join us. We would be honored to have you. So we have been talking about love. Love has been our subject. It's been our topic of conversation so far. So last week we opened up just defining it, and we spoke about a definitive love, what it actually means biblically, and some of the things that we landed on points such as one of the ideas or the hallmarks of how you know what love is the desire to lay your life down. It's really an act of service, and anything that comes from, I don't believe that love should be emotionless. I think you should have the element of emotion in love. I don't personally believe in when the scriptures talks about in 1 Corinthians 13, and it lists all these things that love is, and it never really lists that love is emotional. But at the same time, I don't believe in a passionless love. I just don't, right? I don't believe in a love that's passionless. And so there is elements of emotion, but there's also elements of what the scriptures talk about of love and kindness and patience and all of these different things. And so we defined it. We put it in its correct category. And what we also did is we spoke about what it's not. And it's not an emotional driving force in that sense. And so We laid those foundations. Did the groundwork on that. Today we've got a really, really interesting subject to talk about, and it's something that I personally, I'm not even sure where the inspiration of it came from, but I certainly think it's something that's necessary for us to talk about.
Yeah.
I think by and large, and when we're talking about, I guess, Christian relationships in general, not even really, let me not do that. Let me not boil it down to just Christian relationships. I think in general, our generation just struggles with relationships. We struggle with identifying the correct ones. We struggle with the maintenance and the management of them. We struggle with how to treat people, how to speak to people, all these different things we struggle with. And so one of the biggest things our generation struggles with is the issue of trust. And so we're going to talk about trust issues today.
Yeah.
You have been doing some extensive research on this. And so I'm really excited about what the discussion is going to look like. I'm really excited about how this is going to turn out. And so should we just jump straight in?
Yeah.
No further ado. Let's just jump straight in. And let's talk about this because I want to get into it. So, Shireen, my question for you is how do we, if we're going to speak about anything from an education standpoint, we have to start with definition. So how do we really define trust? What are some of the things that we can look at by way of definition? And hopefully what we're going to do tonight is we're going to be able to identify a trust issue, see it, and how also we can overcome. This is going to be a little bit like therapy for us tonight. So there's going to be a lot of woosah. So let's just get comfortable with that. So let's define that.
So trust is firm belief, or you can say basically like, concrete solidity, belief in someone's reliability, their truth, or their ability to do something, which is basically perform what they say. So if you give me a promise, my trust in him would look like I have total confidence that he's going to act on what he says, that he's not going to go back on his word. So that's what trust is. It's firm belief in someone's reliability, their truth, and their ability to do something.
Okay, so I have a question for you right off the bat. So I know you've really done a lot with this, and you and I have had a discussion this week about this, right? And so,
yes, we did.
For me, trust ultimately, it needs evidence.
Yes, it does.
What's the difference where faith is concerned, though?
Well, faith is a God-given ability. You can't really, whereas trust requires evidence, faith does not. And that is something that God has put in mankind. All human beings have a level of faith, and you can either increase it or decrease it depending on what you do or how you steward faith in your life. But it's God-given. It's a supernatural ability and a divine ability to believe in things that you cannot prove. Trust, however, on the other hand, unlike faith, requires evidence.
Right.
And it requires you to build it based upon what you can see, what you can prove. There needs to be evidence. Faith doesn't need evidence because faith in and of itself is evidence. So, for example, we believe in God, but you can't prove physically or tangibly in the natural world that he exists, but your faith is the evidence that there is something bigger and greater than you.
Gotcha.
That you believe in. Your faith is the evidence that he exists, whereas trust is more of a concept or an attribute that comes from our not our belief system, but it comes from building relationships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Expand on that just a little bit. When you say building relationships, could I trust somebody without building relationship?
No.
Really?
Because trust cannot exist in a vacuum. You need something you need something concrete. There needs to be proof or a history of something for trust to exist.
Okay, so then what about can I not trust my Uber driver to take me where I need to be even though I'm not the one driving?
But you trust an Uber driver based on history of going into taxis and cabs, not necessarily the person themselves, but the fact that you have you've gone into taxis before. So
Right.
that's actually what you're trusting. It's not really in the Uber driver.
Right.
You're trusting the fact that you've taken 100 cabs before and they always get you to your destination.
So what we're okay. So essentially, the idea where trust is concerned is in um the the idea of trust itself is found in the event, not so much the individual. It's found
Depends.
in okay. What does it depend on?
Context, because relationships, yes, it is with individuals, but if it's not a relationship, i.e. like the Uber driver or sitting on a chair, then those are not persons, those are not human beings. So that is based off of evidence that you've done the things before.
So, and forgive me if I'm jumping into something different here, but so if I trust you, am I trusting you, or am I trusting the fact that you and I, by definition, are married? Therefore, that's what you do in a marriage. You trust each other. Do you know what I mean?
Repeat the question again.
So, is it a case of when I say I trust you, am I trusting you, or am I trusting the fact that this is what you do in marriage? You trust.
You're trusting me based off of evidence, what you know about me.
Okay. But if it's the Uber driver though,
You don't know the Uber driver. You might trust in his professionalism. Like he's a taxi driver like the other taxi
he's certified
drivers.
to drive a taxi.
He's certified to drive. Obviously, they wouldn't be there if he wasn't.
Okay.
But you don't know him personally to put your trust in him.
Let's go deeper with this. Okay. All right. I've got so many questions. I have so many questions. Maybe I was gonna say something, I won't say it. All right. Let's get into it just a little bit deeper. What else we got?
Well, you finished talking about faith. Questions there.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll stick to trust, and now that hopefully we've defined the difference between faith and trust. And I just want to say that faith is something that enables you to believe in God and to accept his word and to rest in him. It's believing what you cannot prove, and it's also seen as a duty or allegiance. So faith does not need, as we've said before, concrete evidence to exist. You believe in God because number one, it's an ability given to you not just by the Holy Spirit but also by the word, because the Bible says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. Trust needs concrete evidence. Trust needs some sort of reliability or something to rest upon in order for it to exist, for it to grow, and for you to maintain it. So trust can exist in a variety of relationships. You can talk about friendships, marriage, even in the business and workplace, even in yourself. We don't talk about that one much, trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's a level, yes, where you put confidence in God and total confidence, but you also need a little bit of self-trust.
Right.
Yeah. So you cannot have healthy relationships without trust. It is a necessity if you're going to build good, long-lasting, healthy relationships.
What does a relationship look like when it doesn't have that healthy foundation of trust?
Ooh, okay, I think we're jumping ahead.
Oh, is that a jump? Is that a jump? Okay.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
All right.
Before we go there, let's define why trust is important.
Okay.
Why do you think it's important?
I think it's important because you need a benchmark in every relationship. You need something to you need a lean. You need something to fall back. You need something to. So when trust is almost like relationship prophecy. And what I mean by that is when you don't have clarity concerning what's next, at the very least, you can say, okay, we can still make it through because I trust you. And if we're going somewhere, or if we're whatever the case is, or what we're experiencing, you would hope that the dependency that you have in each other, regardless of what the relationship is, the dependency that you have in each other in that sense is going to be enough to get you through. So when you don't have anything else, at the very least, we've got trust.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's important.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's good. So just a scripture in Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken." So basically what's that saying? For example, if an enemy or a thief or some sort of an attacker comes and attack one person, especially if that person is stronger than you, it's going to be difficult for that one person alone to stand against that attacker. But if there's two people who are in friendship and fellowship together, they're more likely to succeed and overcome what is standing against them. And if they're joined together, they'll be able to resist that attacker. So that's just an example. So what he's saying, if you are alone, just it's like even in like life with certain circumstances, when you don't have friendships, you're talking about what it looks like when you don't have healthy friendships or healthy relationships. One of the things that you can feel is like you are by yourself, that loneliness in life, just that you're doing life by yourself. But when you have friendships and solid relationships, you know that there's someone there that has your back and you can overcome things, not to say like quite easily, but there'll be, I guess, less of a pressure to do life by yourself. So a couple of the reasons why trust is important in relationships. Number one, we already covered that it's needed for healthy relationships. It secures and satisfies the relationship. It allows you to form close relationships. So another way that you can tell, what was the question that you had? A relationship without trust is that there is no bond, there's no closeness within that relationship. It's just like, just it is what it is. I'm over here, you're over there. There's no closeness.
Yeah.
And when you have trust, it allows the relationship to feel safe and non-judgmental. So the opposite happens when you don't have trust. You don't feel safe in that relationship, and you probably feel like if you confess anything that you're going through, the person will probably judge you. The other thing is that trust allows you to be more open and more forgiving of others' shortcomings, and it gives the relationship stability. So when you don't have trust, basically the relationship will be unstable. Anything that comes in is easy to just toss that relationship over. There is no strength within the relationship. There is no resilience, because trust is almost like a glue and a bond. If you don't have that, the relationship is not secure. It's wonky. So any little thing that happens, it's full of suspicions. It's easy to toss over, easy to crumble. There's nothing really firm holding that relationship together. So yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned healthy relationships.
Mm-hmm.
What is a healthy relationship? What does that look like?
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to. In my okay, so I'm gonna. In my opinion, a healthy relationship is 100% definitely feeling safe, but it also comes with the understanding that, of course, the person you are in relationship with, whether it's friendship or marriage, can make mistakes, is allowed to make mistakes, because trust is not without its risks. You have to come to terms with that it's risky to trust someone.
True.
However, so a healthy relationship will have trust with that understanding. You will feel safe, so you can talk to that person about anything. It won't be a judgmental place, and also you can count on the person to be honest with you and open with you. If you're in the wrong, they're not afraid to tell you that you're in the wrong, but they do it in a way where it's done in love, so you're not feeling like you're being condemned, but you're feeling like, okay, you corrected me, I can see where I went wrong, and I can grow from here. So for me, it's a safe place. What about you?
I think a healthy relationship looks like one that's just full of truth, like the ability to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And where you don't have that, you potentially will have a form of dysfunction. Sometimes that might come from one side. It might come from both. But there is always reason for dishonesty. Not that it's justified, but there's reason. But I think a healthy relationship looks like truth, with the ability to keep each other accountable, the ability to say without feeling offense, and especially if what is said is not said in offense, but if it's perceived in offense, then that's an issue.
Yeah.
But when you can say something to me, I recognize where it's coming from. It's always going to come from love, and I have to perceive it as such. That's healthy. And I think whenever we don't have, like, when we look at trust in the midst of that, it's the understanding of what you say to me, I'm going to receive it because I trust that it's got to be coming from a healthy place.
Yeah.
And if it's not coming from a healthy place, it's something that can be recognized quite easily. And this is sometimes where offense falls into it. This is sometimes where we get into the idea of judgmentalism and all these different things. That's what I think. So a follow-on from that then is...
Before you go, just to interact with you guys, type in the comment, if you're bold enough, what does a healthy relationship look like to you? It'd be nice to hear from you guys, to see what you guys think, what your opinions are. Maybe if you've never thought about it, it's probably good to think about it now, give it some thought. And if you're bold enough, type it down in the comments for us. Yeah.
Okay. To moving on, and just thinking about cause and effect, and where more specifically having issues with trust. What does that look like, and what are the causes of that, and how do we get in? Let's get into that a little bit. Like, what are the causes or the reasons that people have trust issues?
There is quite a few, so let's see if we can slow it down and go through a bit. Feel free to elaborate on any one.
You, the other one, just go on.
So one of the major things, and I guess this is obviously within marriage, is infidelity. That is a huge one, because that can impact any future relationship you have. Infidelity is it is a great destroyer when it comes to marriage, because when you think about your spouse, that is the person that you're closest to, that you share with, you do pretty much almost everything with. That's the person you're building a life with. So infidelity is almost like a feeling of betrayal, and that's what it is. It is betrayal. So the trauma that can have on someone, the negative impact that can have on the person's heart, whether or not you will get over that. You can definitely overcome from infidelity, but for some people, the pain is too much, and they don't.
What is the and this is going to be a really difficult question. What is, if that was to happen to somebody, someone steps out in a relationship, whether it be a marriage or otherwise, the psychological impacts that has on an individual, we know is great, right? And so the breaking down of what that trust looks like is, and this is what we spoke about right at the beginning, in terms of the you're able to trust it. Trust needs evidence, right? And one of the bedrocks of relationships, or a healthy relationship, is that it has trust in it. And we all would want to have a healthy relationship. We want to be in a healthy relationship, because the idea of being able to trust somebody intimately is one that's massively appealing.
Yeah.
So when that gets destroyed and when that gets broken, what ends up happening is there is damage on twofold. There's damage in your idea of what you want a healthy relationship to look like, and then there's also damage in the intimacy with that person.
100%.
So across the board, what ends up sometimes happening is you have where you don't have holistic healing where that's concerned, and you end up almost recovering from one area, not the other, and it has consequences. So, for example, if you start to heal from, oh, I still like the idea of it, but I don't like you though, then you never, the relationship in and of itself then is doomed to fail,
Yeah.
because you still want the intimacy and the closeness, and so that's not broken anymore. What is broken is this, your interactions and trust with
Who you
that
want it
person.
with, yeah.
That's broken, and so then that has no help, that has no hope for the relationship in and of itself. But then there's a flip side to that, where you completely broken down on the idea of being intimate with somebody, but you still want the closeness with that person in particular. And that then goes into other areas such as mental and physical abuse in relationships, and all these different things where you want out. However, it's the attachment and connection with that person that's been built over time. And so
Yes.
there needs to be a holistic approach to healing when things like that happens. We often lose hope in one or the other, and probably both, in terms of my idea of relationship and also my my desire for closeness and intimacy with the person that done me wrong. And that's always one of the most difficult things. And it doesn't, and here's the thing, that in and of itself, that broken trust and what that brings, is not in and of itself a trust issue. It's damage of trust, which is vastly different, right? So if my trust has been broken, I don't have an issue with trust. My trust has been broken, and therefore it's going to take some time for that to recover and to heal. However, when the environment is conducive enough for healing, and for whatever reason I decide not to take it, and I begin to pursue life, and it continues and it goes on, and I have not yet taken the opportunity to recover, that's then where it can become an issue, because then you have no basis to not trust somebody or something that you really ought to. And that's where the sticking point comes into it.
Wow. Definitely.
Let's
wow.
go on.
Yeah. So another reason that can cause trust issues is manipulation. If you've been manipulated, and if you have been mistreated. So what this looks like is dishonesty in relationships, any form of passive aggressive behavior, or any form of abuse.
When you say manipulation, what do you mean in relationship?
So any like, let me see if I can put this. I'm trying to figure out a context. So manipulation is it's almost like lies. It's the twisting of someone's belief to
So like the
believe like something is.
So like the psychological,
isn't.
it's almost like psychological abuse, right? So and it can be to an extent. So gaslighting,
Yes, that is one.
things like that, of that nature, right? Is what you're talking about. Okay, fine.
So trauma as well is one thing that can cause any trust issues, and also a history of traumatic experiences. One of these things that I found was quite interesting is witnessing parental conflicts that ended in abuse or divorce, and that impact that has on you if you were a child who witnessed that. That can actually go on to affect your romantic relationships if that is not dealt with. You know, some people say, well, my parents didn't last long or something like that, so I don't believe in marriage, or I don't believe in putting your hopes in this one person, or this, some people would say, this fairy tale kind of relationship. And, you know, they go on about life avoiding any form of commitment because of what they've seen in their parents.
How dangerous is that, though?
Yeah.
Like, in the sense of the almost like the shadowing, the copying, the mimicking of a traumatic experience, and through no fault of that child, or whoever the case is, through no fault of their own, what ends up happening is they perceive. And here's the thing with where children are concerned, and this is why the safeguarding of children is so important, because children would always, and depending on age, maturity, all these different things, they would always perceive what they see in developmental stage as normal, right? So naturally speaking, when a child sees something in the age where they're supposed to be absorbing information and just learning and not really asking a lot of questions, but
Yeah.
just watching and taking in, when something is been presented to them in any way, shape, or form, and it's a prolonged, sustained thing, then that becomes almost imprinted on their identity. They grow up with it, make the perception that it's normal, and then almost subconsciously fall into it, regardless of what it is or what it looks like. It goes right down to issues of gender identity. It goes down to what we, again, perceive as healthy relationships, all these different things. Massively important and massively concerning as well, especially where our children are.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I don't have kids yet, but one of the things that
This
I've
is
always...
so bright. Why is it so bright? Can I
Oh.
turn this Jesus off?
Is it in your face?
It's really in my face.
But
Like,
that was dull.
I think it's okay. I honestly, well, okay, all right. I'll turn it back on again. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just
Maybe
so
it's the
hot.
angle.
Jesus.
Oh God. So yeah, so one of
Be
the
a
things,
fan.
you and I don't have kids yet, but one of the things that I've heard people say, learning from that, like if you are parents and you are gonna go through divorce or whatever, communicate that to your children, depending on their ages, in a safe way that
Yeah.
they can understand. Don't ever try to hide that from them, because that actually does more damage than good.
Mhm.
So another one of the thing is a history of abuse or even being bullied. Being bullied in school, being bullied in the workplace can allow you to cause you to avoid making commitment in relationships and friendships because of not trusting, I guess, human behavior. Abandonment issues or even any attachment issues, a history of betrayal, fear of rejection. We find that to be a common one. Low self-esteem, and here's an interesting one, and this one is diagnosed medically. If you have any mental or personality disorders or any psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, may cause a level of paranoia. So having trust issues is not always what you've developed historically, or because someone did something to you. It could be a reason because of a mental disorder that's been diagnosed.
Right. So essentially, what we're also looking at is if trust needs evidence, essentially, where you are presented in an environment that demands you have some kind of evidence in order for you to survive, and you don't have that, then naturally it's going to cause an issue.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like when, if I am in, I don't know what scenario I can think of, but any environment or culture that demands you to be happy 100% of the time. Let's say, for example, right, and you have got no evidence whatsoever, or you've got no context to draw on historically to say this is what caused me happiness, so then I can just pull from that and be happy. When you don't have that, then how can I flourish in this environment, and how can I be present in this culture if I don't have any historical evidence to draw on? And I think that's also the part of trust being an issue in that sense, especially if you have a medically induced disorder or whatever the case is.
Yeah, definitely. And it's important to also know that trust issues can have a negative impact on different forms and different contexts of relationships. I would like you to talk about this a little bit. Work relationships and productivity. What does that look like if you are in a workplace and you got trust, like huge trust issues with people? How does that affect your productivity in the workplace?
It can range from a bunch of ways. One of the immediate things it can do is it can cause burnout, whereby you begin to just take on everything because you just don't. There are pressures coming from everywhere, right? And there might be time pressures according to the role that you do, the job that you play. You have time pressures where that's concerned, and that in and of itself will then cause you to not ask for help, not because you don't need it, but because you just don't trust the people around you can get the job done that would satisfy whatever those pressures are coming from. And so you end up putting in more hours than you need to. You end up doing more than you need to. You end up overcompensating, simply because you don't have enough safety around you to then pull on and say, this is where I need the help and this is where I need the support. So there is that, number one. Number two, just the nature of the workplace in general, that everyone's out for their own skin, essentially. And where you have 10 people and only one opportunity for promotion, and those different things, it becomes crabs in a barrel. Like, everybody begins to fight for the one opportunity, and they don't really care, or they certainly don't mind who they step on in order to get it. It becomes quite toxic and dog eat dog in that sense. What else? There's so many. Like, the workplace is such a revealer.
Do you find what about losing motivation, easily becoming frustrated? Say, for example, you've been given a task and you just don't put as much effort.
I think that doesn't necessarily mean that there is a trust issue. I think that sometimes means that you've just reached your ceiling within the role that you're doing, and sometimes that's okay. Like, that's an okay place to come to professionally. It just needs some honesty, and that then becomes the issue of trust, where I can't be honest enough to say I don't want to do this anymore.
Right, okay.
And then you just, day by day, you just go through the same routine. You end up growing more and more resentful through the people that you're working with, your colleagues, your superiors, your direct reports, whatever the case is. You become resentful of everyone and everything because you have not found a place and an opportunity of trust where you can actually say, I don't like this, I hate this, and I want to do something else.
Wow. Okay, so trust issues can also have a negative impact on your romantic relationships, friendships.
Wait, hold on a minute. So, just going back, romantic relationships, right?
Marriage. Just gotta slip that one in there. Yeah.
So,
marriage, guys.
If I, how do I? Oh my God. Okay, so I've got so many questions. So, is our inability to really to come to a place of understanding trust, is that one of the reasons as to why we are having so many relationship issues? And when I say relationship issues, I also mean, the singles are frustrated, the married people are frustrated, everybody's frustrated because we're mismanaging relationships. And when it comes to romantic relationships, there's oftentimes where the frustration comes from is the expectation. And there is an expectancy to say that relationships ought to look like this. And I don't have that. Or on the flip side, if you are in a romantic relationship and it's just not going the way that you had planned it to be, there is frustration because, again, through trust, there is that expectancy, right? So for those who have difficulty not only getting into relationships, but also the maintenance and the management of those relationships. And I might be jumping a gun a little bit in terms of what do we do about that, but that is something for us to consider later on in this discussion, just around what can we do to ensure that we have correct relationship management, number one, and also we don't close off a good thing when a good thing comes around. Because he hasn't got broad shoulders, and he doesn't have a strong hairline, and he doesn't drive a Mercedes or Audi, and he doesn't he's 5'4", and he doesn't have a beard, and let's go I let me not, because I can go,
get in trouble.
Do not. No, I'm not going down that road. But ultimately, what I'm saying is that when we make those things the benchmark of relationship, naturally speaking, that when you get into it and you realize that those things cannot sustain you, there is that natural disappointment, and that's when you get the stepping out. That's when you get the cheating and all of these different things, because of how we have and where we have placed trust within our relationships.
Yeah, we will definitely deal with it a little bit later on. But one of the things I can say now is learn to manage expectations. Don't.
I can't do it. Sorry. Go on.
Learn to manage
People can hear us, but they can't see us. Go on.
Learn to manage your expectations. So don't expect too much too soon in a relationship, and that is whether you're dating, courting, dating,
Wait, hold
courting,
on.
whatever you call it.
Say that again. Don't do
Don't
what?
expect too much too soon.
Okay.
Manage your expectations.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, we live in a world, guys. We're human beings. We have faults. We're not perfect. So you just being, I don't even know what to call someone who trusts very easily. I don't know if there's a term for that, but you going into relationships and just boom, trusting, everything is in it. I know, like, when you're dating or when you're courting, you have to be your honest self. You have to show up. You cannot be overly secretive, because then that's not being open in a relationship. But manage your expectation. Don't expect, I think sometimes we go into relationship thinking this person is going to be, I don't know, my knight in shining armor, and they're going to be just perfect. And like you said, sometimes it's a lot of the physical appearance of a person that we go for, and we don't go in thinking. When using our brain, we use our heart a lot. So manage your expectations. Learn to take the time to learn the person as you go along.
However, though, in saying that, and there's wisdom to what you're
Get
saying.
to know the person as you go along.
Sure, of course, yeah. There's truth to that. However, isn't part of the fun, and I think this is low key toxic. So just forgive
when we
me.
get into trouble.
Yeah, I know.
Let me listen to what you're gonna say.
This is low. Isn't it low key part of the fun, right? That in the initial stages of relationship, you have that expectation, and then you just push the boat as far as you can to see if it's met. Now, maturity would tell you, all right, if it's not met, then this is as far as the boat goes out. So don't go any further than this.
So are you talking about standards?
No, I'm just talking about whatever your idea of this relationship, what you want this relationship to look like, or what you want it to be. So if you, I'm sorry that there is no way in the world, right? You tell me that this does not happen. I refuse to believe it. If you're on a first date, anybody who's been on a first date, right? There is no way in the world it will never come out of your mouth, right? But you will think on some level, I wonder what the future, or I wonder what the long term looks like with this person. You always will do. Like
think that?
Yeah, I do. I think, and we often, but we're not going to say it because our line of questioning is not going to give that away. So we're always going to talk about, tell me what you do for work. Tell me what you do this. And by all of those answers and those responses, we gauge all of those different things, right? And then in our minds, though, because ultimately that's what we want. Mm-hmm. What we want is the long term. What we want is the future. We want if it's a desire for marriage, we want that. So this person sits down in front of you, and it's an unconscious job interview. It's essentially what it is, right? And you don't even know, but you're auditioning.
I love the way you put it.
You don't even really realize it, but that's essentially what's happening here. You are auditioning for like the future, but you would never really come out and say it because you don't want to be crazy. You don't want to sound insane. And on the first date, tell me what your ring size is, and tell me what your where you would like to honeymoon and all that. You wouldn't do that. But in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, okay, could this be it? Or and you explore. So, and that's really what a second date, a third date, a fourth date, that's what those things do. You're exploring until you get to the point where you're comfortable with taking it. Until you get to the point where you're comfortable with taking it just a little bit further. I think what happens is the initial element of trust when we, for example, you decided to say, okay, well, we're going to be a thing, right? And we're going to go into this relationship. But by then, though, you should have already decided whether or not there is a future or not with this person. Exactly. You should have known that right from the moment you have decided and said, okay, verbal contract, we are in a relationship, right? And so there should be in that period of time, that's when there's learning and there's education, right? And so you're still and if at that point you realize this wasn't what I thought it would be, then fine, that's okay. But you shouldn't then go into that wondering and thinking and saying, I wonder, what life would be like. Well, you should already kind of know, as far as I'm concerned anyway. But anyway, rabbit hole. Go on,
Yes.
continue.
Yes. So romantic relationships, friendships. Remember, we're talking about the type of relationships that trust issues can have a negative impact on. Relationships with your family and even your children, if you have children, and your own mental health.
Yeah.
I can imagine like not being able to trust or have your trust being abused over and over again, or really struggling with that. Like, what does that do to someone's mental health? Never feeling safe with people, always withdrawing, never really want to be around people. And that's definitely a work of the enemy, because human being, just in our makeup and the way we were created to desire relationships.
Yeah.
We were created with the desire to have human interaction, and you really cannot go through life in a positive way without it. So yeah, you need relationships. So let's go on to the signs that someone may be dealing with trust issues. And I just want to say, recognizing one or two of these signs doesn't mean that you have trust issues. It could just mean that your trust has been abused. You're willing to trust again, but you just need to heal, because it's not an exhaustive list.
But then also remember, we just to caveat, be completely clear on that doesn't, an inability to trust doesn't make it an issue. It what it means is that there is breakdown.
Yeah.
So then there's need to heal. A desire, an inability to trust doesn't always mean that an incapability. Does that make sense? Like, when I say inability, meaning that I have difficulty doing it, is because I'm not healed from it. It's like I have difficulty walking with a broken leg. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not to say that you don't want to walk anymore. Like, I just, my leg's broken, I can't walk. It's altogether different if, like,
there's a pattern.
Your leg is now healed and you're still lying down saying, I will not walk because I am afraid that this leg will break again. That's an issue. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So here are some of the signs. Number one, you assume or anticipate betrayal despite how honest the other party has been.
Lord Jesus.
So
no, that...
Sorry, guys.
No, but but that's a common one though, right?
Yeah,
that's common, where we just project our own history onto somebody
people.
else, and that person has been, as they got
As
nothing
honest,
to do
right.
with your pain. They've got nothing to do with your traumatic experiences. They've got nothing to do with these life events, but all of a sudden they have just fallen into the firing line. So
they've shown you that they're honest, you're genuine, that they can be trusted, but you just refuse to budge.
But also sometimes though, that in and of itself is a trigger, because the person that hurt you also
was the same way
they also
at the
displayed
beginning.
those same things, right?
Yeah.
And so it sometimes is, and that's the reason why it's the proverbial good girls like bad boys and vice versa, right? Because it's better the devil you know. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you've been hurt by somebody who displayed ultimate, like, they look that they can be trusted, and then they ended up breaking that trust, what you're then going to do is perceive everybody who looks like they can display trust as liars.
Yeah.
And you then gravitate to people who just show you up front and say, I will, like, disappoint, hurt, and abuse you. So you go that way because at least you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's quite a tough thing to think about. So if you think about it, everybody wants, like, that level of honesty, right? Everybody wants a relationship that has honesty and it has clarity, has all of these different things, all these health-free attributes. But I think, to your point, you said it earlier, that's the reason why a lot of this is risky, because you never would really know until you get into it and you trust. Like, trust isn't trust until you're in a position where you put your heart in the hands of somebody else. Do you know what I mean? Unless you've done that, then you're not trusting.
Definitely.
And that's all that in and of itself will carry the risk of my heart is now in your hands, and you now have the power to drop it, mishandle it, misplace it, destroy it, whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is what stops people from doing that, from saying, here's my heart.
Yeah.
I've experienced that before, and I've given it to somebody who looked like they could handle it, and then they mismanaged it. And so I'm not going to do that anymore. But what I will do, though, is that I potentially will do it with somebody that says, I don't even want it.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want your heart. I want you, though, but I don't even want your heart.
Wow.
And that, for some people, is a more comfortable, emotionally, is a more comfortable environment to be in, because I'm not going to then be faced with, I wonder if.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the worrying in and of itself is it sometimes can be painful.
Yeah.
But if I know, then I can just deal with it.
Wow. This is why we're going to go through how to overcome.
Yeah.
Let's go through some more of these. You distance yourself from others and you avoid commitment even if you care for someone. So you'll go as much as caring for the person, but you won't go any further. You'll distance yourself every now and then. You will withdraw and you will avoid commitment or any form of long-term relationship, even if you show that, you know, I actually care for this person. I see that they're trying. I see that they're showing up, but that fear won't allow you to go any further with that person. And you decide that it's best to keep people at a distance to avoid being hurt.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing is you refuse to forgive and hold grudges of even the smallest mistakes, and you make a big deal out of nothing. So any little thing triggers you emotionally because you're thinking, okay, you've done that in a way to get back at me, or you've done this or you've done that. Even if it's like the smallest of things, you make a big deal out of it. The other thing is that you're very cautious and suspicious of everyone you meet. So you may have more difficulty in forming relationships with others. And that's the similar one as that we talked about in the beginning, assuming or anticipating betrayal. And as a result of isolating yourself, sometimes you can feel lonely or depressed. And I tell you, the enemy is such a liar, because if you think about it, as I said before, human beings need to interact with each other. And the fact that you can't go out there talking to cows and pigs and cats and trees. You need human interaction. And the fact that not getting... Oh, you're laughing. No, but seriously.
No, I just put an image in my
you
head for no
need
reason.
human interaction, because these are the people you communicate with. So this is why it's important that if you have been hurt, take the time out to heal and find ways in ways that you can get help and have the courage to talk to someone about it, because humankind or mankind is one race and one species. There's not an alien walking around in the human race that you can go and talk to. You can't talk to trees, you can't communicate with inanimate objects. You need human interaction. And so that's why it's such a trick of the enemy to have you isolating from people, the very people you need. So that's one of the things as well. So one of the things that will show up in your life as well, if you're struggling with trust issues, is a lack of vulnerability. You will never let people get too close to know you. You're overly secretive and you lack intimacy. You either don't know how to be intimate or show intimacy, whether in your friendships or romantic relationships. You are overly secretive. You're always holding back. And you don't have a problem with people sharing their deepest with you, but you would never share your deepest because you don't think that they're serious about it. You don't think that they'll cover you. You don't think that they can handle it. And you just think that they'll just probably end up using it against me one day. So I won't share in the first place in order to protect and to defend and cover myself. Perfectionism is something as well that will show up if you have trust issues, and that really comes from not trusting yourself. So that's different from dealing with other people in terms of relationship. This is the relationship you have with yourself.
Right.
Having a healthy relationship with yourself is also important. If you don't have one with yourself, it's going to be difficult for you to have healthy relationship with other people. So perfectionism as well can sometimes show up when you don't trust yourself to do something. You don't trust yourself to step out. You don't trust yourself to go forward. You don't trust yourself to make decisions, even if it's going to benefit you or your future. Always second guessing yourself, doubting yourself. That's one of the areas that having trust issue within self can show up. Is you have an issue with perfectionism. Everything has to be perfect, but then it never is.
Right. Right.
It never becomes perfect. The last thing that we're going to look at is controlling behavior. You feel the need to have complete control over every situation. As trust goes down, control rises. And that's what you were talking about in the workplace. Not trusting other people to handle certain thing in your life. And because you don't trust someone else to do it, you become this kind of like a bit of control freak. It's just, everything, let me do. I can do it. I don't need help from here. I don't need help from you. I can do it myself. I can do it all by myself. And that is such a lie, because then what happens is you burn out.
Yeah. Also, it shows a flaw in, especially depending on the role that you play. It's a wicked leadership flaw.
Yeah.
Because when you feel the need to have to control everything, for me, it's showing you two things. It's showing you, number one, that, and the obvious one is, you don't trust the people around you. But then also, number two, you don't trust yourself enough to educate the people around you so they can do it. And anybody who's in a form of control in that sense, and you're displaying controlling behavior, you're right. Like, at the core of it is a trust issue. And that inability to essentially give people their flowers, and making sure people have value in what they're doing. When you don't give people that, but you feel, I'm just going to do it myself, or whatever the case is, and it's because you're not that strong, or you're not that competent when it comes to educating those around you. It's a without defending it, it's quite an easy slope to fall into.
Yeah. Because maybe you don't realize that it's from a trust issue.
Right.
Maybe you don't notice that.
Let's we're slightly over time, but let's let's just go through the very last bit, and we're just going to talk about like what we can do just to overcome.
Right, so here are some of the things that you can do to overcome. I've got 10 points here, but I'm sure there are other ways that you can. So first of all, it is possible to heal from trust issues. That's a good thing. Our life is not over. We have trust issues. Okay, it's not over for us. We can heal from it. Okay, but we must acknowledge that some things do take more time to heal than others. So it depends on the context of the situation. So number one, allow yourself time to heal. Give yourself some grace. Okay, don't start to condemn yourself because, I've got this issue wrong with me. I can't make friends, or I'm struggling to make friends, etc., etc. Allow yourself the time to identify what those things are, and give yourself the grace and the time to heal. You are not perfect, just as everybody else on this planet is not perfect. You're not the only person going through this. So allow yourself the time to heal, and don't rush or allow anyone to rush your process in healing, because what you overlook today could show up in an even worse way tomorrow. So take the time to heal properly. Number two, take safe emotional risk by practicing to trust in small ways. So you don't have to, do some grandiose move, but you can do little things. For example, take someone at their word. If someone says, I don't know, I'm going to, I'm going to do something for you, or something nice for you, or whatever. Try to take somebody at their word, and, give them the benefit of the doubt. So that's one way. Another way that you can, and this is within relationships or friendships, communicate with your partner if you feel that they have crossed a boundary. Because one of the things that I do feel that happen, I guess, because of people are fearful that they don't want to say the wrong thing to cause an offense. But when you don't communicate that a boundary that you have been crossed, you begin to harbor feelings. And what you don't realize is that begin to affect your trust
We're
because you
gonna do a
never
whole thing
communicated.
about boundaries.
Yeah,
We are
we're gonna do
gonna do
boundaries
a
as well.
whole thing
Can't wait.
about boundaries.
Can't wait. But
Yeah.
if you feel a boundary has been crossed, please do communicate this. Have the boldness to communicate this. Acknowledge trust issues and reflect upon the potential roots. Sometimes we see an issue in our lives, but we don't take the time to be like, you know what is actually causing this? Where did this come from? And sometimes we can get so busy in life, we don't stop to reflect. But reflection can be such a benefit to you if you find out that you are struggling with this. And you can do this by journaling or talking to someone. And of course, that sounds, a bit like, well, I've got trust issues. Who do I talk to? But start by journaling. And then gain the confidence. There must be a family member or someone that you can talk to that has shown you that they are trustworthy. This is one of the things that we don't talk about as well. How about becoming trustworthy yourself? Because see, this is why continuing in trust issues or allowing yourself not to heal is such a lie. Because what you don't recognize that's happening when you start to, I guess, embrace the fact that, okay, like, yeah, I've got trust issues, but then you won't get over them. What that happens is then you yourself don't become trustworthy because you're not putting out there that you trust. And if people see that you don't trust, and I'm like, okay, what's wrong with you? I can't trust you either. So remember, what's inside of you, you can put that out.
Right.
Because other people can read that within your body language. So learn to become a trustworthy person yourself as well.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is realize that you can steward your own trust. Other people, though they can affect your trust, do not control your trust. Okay, let me say that again. Other people's actions, though it can affect your trust, they do not control your trust. Your choice to trust someone does not rest solely on other people's actions. You can learn to withdraw because you see signs that this person is not trustworthy. As a matter of fact, if you see that it's dangerous, to then you see the boundaries being crossed, but then you overlook it. This is where people get into a lot of mess in a lot of situations where relationship is concerned, because you see the red flags.
But we love the danger,
You,
though.
you,
We love the danger. I know
that?
that's toxic. It's toxic. I know, but it's true though. We love the danger. So it's like we see it. It's the whole Titanic
It's
thing.
so
Like,
daring.
we
It's crazy.
see it, and it's like it's on its way. It's coming, but we don't withdraw. We don't pull out, and we don't hold back because there's drama down the road.
Wow.
And on some level, things are just, and life and, relationships and all of those things, it just becomes that little bit more interesting.
Wow.
And it's toxic. I'm not saying it's me. I don't do that. Like, I want peace
No.
with all men where possible.
Okay,
But
so
yeah.
just a few more. And so the other thing that you can do is learn to build your self-esteem by, number one, believe in what God says about you. Acknowledge your strengths as well. It's okay to praise your strengths, and do practical things that make you happy and focus on positive things. Because one of the things that unhealed trust can teach you is to constantly focus on negative stuff. You're pessimistic. You don't really have any faith that this relationship can go well, or it's all just going to end up like the last ones. So take the time out to acknowledge the things that are good, that's going on good in your life as well. Don't always focus on what could be or what could come out negative. That you're a human being, so you will be having good experiences as well as bad experiences in life. So start to try to focus and acknowledge what's going on good and praise those things and give God thanks for those things and believe what God says about you. The other thing you can do is learn to heal from past hurts. So forgiveness is a big thing, and manage emotions in a healthy way. I learned this: quickly forgive. It's okay if you have to take your time to heal, but quickly decide okay, yeah, this is a messy situation, but I'm gonna decide quickly to forgive. Please do not let unforgiveness harbor,
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, some nasty things can come from that. It opens up the door to resentment, bitterness, rage, and before you know it, you're an angry, miserable person. You don't want that.
You're holding a knife over his head at bedtime. You're thinking about what kind of
It's
rat poison
crazy.
to
You
put in
become
his jerk
you
chicken.
become
You
murderous. Like honestly, you don't want
become murderous.
you don't want that. You don't want
Yeah,
these. You
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
these
yeah.
problems.
You become
You don't
murderous,
want
man.
those
Lord
problems.
have
So
mercy.
learn to heal from past hurts, and decide that okay, that happened with that person. It doesn't mean that it will happen with this person. And here is the thing. Let me just say this quickly because this actually does happen. We talk about patterns of abuse. Sometimes people come out of one negative relationship and boom, they realize the second one is the same thing. You want to know why? Because you haven't healed. So those things, those desires subconsciously are showing up in your life and in your emotions, and you're attracting what you did not heal from.
Yeah,
So it's important that you heal before you jump into other relationships
correct.
and manage your emotions as well in a healthy way.
Yeah, you're just on that. Your emotional and mental state is always going to be, and a safeguarding that is always going to be the same in line you would do with your physical body, right? And so, how you would treat your physical body where recovery is concerned is how you would treat your emotional state and how you would also treat your mental state. You will not start walking if your leg is broken,
Yeah.
and you just know you wouldn't, right? You know you're not prepared to. You know that there is rehabilitation that needs to be done, and so you would do what's necessary to take the steps. And that's the reason why I don't think the issue or the maintenance or management of mental health is as difficult as we think it is. It literally goes in line with how we treat our physical bodies. And so
Definitely.
where you recognize the need to heal, make sure you take that and make sure you do what's necessary and you seek advice and you seek
100%.
help, you seek
100%.
counsel, you seek community, you do all of those different things. But healing is one of the, for me, on a human level, it's the most fundamental thing you can do for your future.
The most powerful thing you can do.
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah,
If
one
you
of the
don't
most
do
powerful
anything,
things.
heal, man, heal. Regardless of whatever that hurt is, identify it and recognize the need to heal. Your future will thank you for it.
Because here's the thing: when you don't heal, you will sabotage relationships.
Massively.
You'll sabotage good things coming to you before you even unpack what they really are. You have no idea the blessing and the benefit that could come from a relationship or could come from a connection with someone, but you sabotage it before you could even unpack it. This is why it's important that you heal and, like you said, take the time to do that well and to do that properly. And just like you've mentioned, the other thing we can do is talk to a therapist or seek pastoral care or seek some kind of counsel. When all else fails, do that. Try to go the professional route and definitely get some help.
I wouldn't even sometimes say when all else. I would say like as soon as you can speak to somebody who can recognize that there is a need for that, seek it out.
Yeah.
Honestly, seek it out. Like there is.
If you realize it's something that is becoming
Yeah,
overpowering, you're not being
100%.
able to manage your trust issues.
And let's
or-
remove the stigma from that too. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like let's destroy this notion of wanting to go and I don't really want to speak to a psychotherapist or I don't really want to speak to a counselor and all these different things. No, like go and do it, man. Go and speak to people. Go and get some help. It's massively
Yeah.
important.
Definitely. The last thing I definitely did put, and I put it I put it 10th for a reason. Do not underestimate prayer and the power of the Holy Spirit to set you
man.
free.
Yeah.
You have a maker. You have a creator. You didn't pop out of the sky anywhere. Someone created you with those emotions, with your mind, with your heart, the complex nature of who you are as an individual. You were created by someone whose name is Yahweh. He loves you, he cares for you, and he has made a way of escape. So if you are struggling, because let's be real, some people say, well, I can't afford a therapist right now. Prayer, let me tell you, can be the best therapy. And we do a prayer school, can be one of the best therapies you've ever received and ever done, because it gives you that place again, that safe safe place where you can be yourself and be honest about what's going on. And I don't want to go too far because this is going to go down a rabbit hole. I know some people have a little bit of a complex where it comes to God. You don't see him properly, and so you don't feel like you can go to him with certain things because you condemn yourself. But I want to encourage you that God is not like that. He absolutely loves you, and he wants you to come and talk to him, whether you feel like, well, I haven't been to church or whatever, I'm unsaved, I don't do this or I don't do that. But prayer is welcome to everyone. God is open to your conversation, and he just wants to hear from you. He is your maker, and trust you, he will not turn you away. And don't underestimate the power of God to set you free. He created you. If he decides, well, not that if he decides, but if you're crying out for freedom, he will give it to you. He's not a vengeful God.
And here is the other thing, though. And we spent a lot of time teaching this, just about honesty where prayer is concerned. If you're finding it tough to trust God, prayer is a good place to make that known to God. And just say, God, I'm finding it really, really difficult to trust you right now.
And that's the good thing about prayer.
100. Yeah, this is what it's for.
That's why I said it's such a crazy phenomenon. Yeah. So that like you said, like, you don't trust God to come to him, but prayer is he still made prayer. That if you don't trust him, you can still come to him and say, I don't trust you. I'm struggling with that. God is, he's amazing and a wonder. But don't underestimate that. He is not someone that will reject you. He will definitely welcome you and welcome communion with you and help you to make those steps to get you free. So here is the last thing that we're going to go through, because I want to, you've heard all of that, and I want to give some tips and some helps. We've talked about how to overcome. Let's say you're going to pursue new relationships, whether this be friendships or romantic relationships, going into a new workplace. Let's talk about how trust is supposed to be built, how a healthy relationship based upon trust is supposed to be done properly. Okay, and then we can go. Yep. Right, so God is perfect and he's consistent, so we can safely put our trust in him. Human beings are not perfect, so we have to reconcile with some basic principles if we're going to build and to maintain trust. So I put down 4 things. I'm sure there's more, but 4 basic things that I wanted to get across that you definitely have to reconcile with if you're going to go into a relationship. Number 1, we talked about this already. Building trust involves taking risk. Okay, you cannot go into any form of relationships as if you are in la la land. That's not the reality of this world. It does involve taking risk. So if you're someone who is afraid of taking risk, can I just say anything that you're going to go after in life is going to involve you taking a risk. So if you want a better future for yourself, you're going to have to take risk. Relationships will take risk. Some people have quit their jobs to become an entrepreneur so that they can bet themselves. That's risky. Life will be surrounded with risk. So be bold enough, reconcile that. Okay, I realize that putting my trust in another human being is risky. Okay, so that's one thing to realize, and I'm gonna tie that up with number 4, but let me just go through. So it carries the risk of someone breaking that trust and the possibility of getting hurt because of this. Okay, that's one thing that we understand. Number 2, it takes time and patience and being forgiving to build and to earn trust. It will take time to build a relationship, and it's funny about that whole thing about taking time, because some people are like, well, I can't be bothered. I really can't be bothered because I spent years trying to build this friendship or build this relationship with someone. I just want to do that again because it's time consuming. So that's one of the things that we've got to reconcile. It does take time. It requires you to be patient and forgiving because, again, people are not perfect.
On that, though, where you mentioned about people are not perfect, one of the things that I do, right? So I'm by nature a very trusting person, right? But I've also learned that when that trust is broken, to how that doesn't then affect me emotionally. Not that it doesn't affect me emotionally, but how I'm not burdened by it and how I'm not cast down by it. So it's the art of keeping people close and holding them tight enough whereby you then can develop that closeness, that intimacy, and that trust. but then when it's time to let go, you're not holding on longer than you need to. And knowing that balance is very difficult.
It can be.
However, at the same time, it is possible. So there are people that, when I think back over, my own life in the years, and the people that the relationships I've built, and the trust and the friendships and all those different things, and there's elements of trust that I've placed in all of those people, and it didn't become what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
When I look back on it now, in the moment, was it a painful thing? Sure. But did I die? No. Like
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But that comes with experience. And what I'm saying is that over time, you would learn and say, do you know what? My desire is still to trust.
Yes.
However, I've seen enough now to know that it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
So I'm going to hold you close. And in the event I need to let you go, it's not going to be so emotionally damaging for me where I have to continue to do this even though you're causing me pain.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, okay, do you know what?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the attachment issue that shows up in someone who struggles with trust issues as well. So number 3, it requires vulnerability and courage.
Yeah, massively.
So if you're going to form close relationships, you need to be able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You can't form close relationships without being vulnerable, without someone knowing the deep parts of you, because that's where intimacy will show up.
Yeah.
And it requires courage. You're going to have to be a bit brave if you want to go for relationships, especially in the 21st century.
Yeah.
There are still good people out there.
Yeah.
And
also just on that, just always pay attention to people who are willing to be vulnerable with you. Always, because it's a massive revealer of their own characters. People don't have to, and I'm not talking about oversharing. I'm not talking about divulging information they don't need to. Yeah, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about people who are willing to show vulnerability to you, because that in and of itself takes a massive load of courage in order to do that, even in an environment in a time where they don't necessarily need to.
Yes.
So, i.e., the workplace is actually a really good example of this, where if somebody has, for whatever reason, decided to divulge a level of information to you, take that seriously.
Don't abuse it.
Absolutely not. Do not abuse that. 100%.
Wow. So the last point that I've put down is ensure that your confidence and trust in God is firmly fixed. And this is from Psalm 56:4. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust and I'm not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? The reason why I put this down is because I realize that when your confidence and your trust is fixed in God firmly, you will go through things in life that, yes, will hurt you, but will not shake you. Just like my husband said, you're not going to die tomorrow just because someone abused your trust. You're not going to fall off the face of the planet somewhere. When you have security in God, it gives you that much more courage to go after relationships, because you can say, you know what, God, even if this happens, even if a fallout happens, God, you've got me.
Yeah.
You've got me. The scripture says, he is a mother of the motherless, a father of the fatherless. When my mother and my father forsake me, he will take me up. So even though these things will happen in life, because my confidence in him, I know I'm going to make it through anyway. I know I'm going to overcome. I'm not without hope, because first, my confidence is in the right place. When you have confidence in the arm of flesh, i.e. just people is your, cap for confidence, then they can dictate your emotions, how you feel today, how you feel tomorrow. If they say one thing to you today, that's how you're gonna feel. And if they say this about you tomorrow, like you're just riding the wave of other people's word over your life, riding the wave of their emotional abuse with you, because your confidence is in man. In other words, they have almost become your idol. But when your confidence is fixed in God first, regardless of what man does to you, you will always, trust me when I say this, you will always overcome. So make sure that your confidence first is put in him.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to go through some bits like, all right, so how can we build and maintain healthy relationships where trust is concerned? So number one, we talked about it already. Take your time getting to know new people. Build trust gradually, take small steps, and don't expect too much too soon. So we talked about that already. One of the big things that's also important in relationships and our trust is communicate effectively. Be clear about your commitments. Please do not go into relationships just randomly and just willy nilly anyway. Be clear about your expectations and your commitments. What do you have in your capacity to give to this relationship in this particular season of your life? Are you in a place where right now new relationships isn't probably not the right thing for you? Maybe you're in a season where you need to heal. You need to be okay with that, and it's okay to desire relationships, but don't let your if you need to heal, if you're in a season where you need to heal, do not let your desire for relationships override your emotion where you bypass your healing because you just want and you crave relationships. Please do your healing first. And then when you get to that place, be clear about your commitments. The third thing, integrity. Be true to your word. Okay? Honor your commitments and please do not make empty promises. If you want to degrade trust in a relationship very quickly, make a promise you can't keep. That's literally one way that people will just be like, yeah, you know what, you can't be trusted. You say one thing and then you don't bunk on your promises. Always tell the truth because lies diminish trustworthiness. Another thing is being consistent. So if you need to show up in a relationship. Be a consistent friend, be a good friend. So the other thing, make decisions carefully. Think before committing and have the courage to say no. And I know we're going to talk about boundaries this month as well. But having the courage to say no is actually healthy in relationships. Saying yes to everything is not actually healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, so participate openly. Let's say this is in a workplace or a team setting. Learn to listen actively. Be an active listener. And when you give feedback, please let it be respectful and show a willingness to trust. Put yourself out there. Demonstrate that, you know what, I'm willing to trust my team. I'm willing to trust my employer, or I'm willing to trust those around me. The other thing, help people, but avoid self-promotion. So authentic kindness will build trust. And I do want to say authentic kindness because some people do get into relationships for clout. Some people are opportunists. Opportunists, how do you say the word? Opportunists. Opportunist. They only get in relationships to get a come up and all of that. But authentic kindness, people will trust you when you learn to show that. Learn to recognize and celebrate other people's achievements. That helps to build good relationships when you celebrate other people around you. Constant self-promotion will degrade trust when it's always about me and what I've got going on. And you can, this is one of the things, let me tell you a red flag that you can find in relationships and friendships. If you have a friend that is constantly, and let's say you're in conversation, and this have to be a pattern. I'm not talking about one or two times. A pattern of this where you're sharing what's going on in each other's life, where there's a conversation, and this person, they don't even actively listen to what you're saying. They're not giving feedback to what you're saying. It's just always about them. They're quick to cut the conversation just to talk about what's going on in their life. You might want to start questioning whether or not that friendship is healthy for you, because it's always about them. It's always about what's going on in them. When you have something good going on, it's like, the conversation, it just cuts short. There's no celebration. There's no genuine feeling as if they're really hearing you or celebrating what's going on in your life. It's just always about them, their self-promotion, what's going on for them, what's God doing in their life or what's not happening, etc., etc. The relationship is one-sided, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, if you want to be trustworthy, you yourself do not be someone who is constantly promoting self. The other person in the relationship matters. They value as well. Okay, learn to admit mistakes. Hey, the pride issue. When you are wrong, learn to admit that you're wrong. Accountability encourages trust. When people can see, yes, it takes courage as well, but when people can see that you know what, they made a mistake and they've acknowledged it, they're accountable. But like, you know what, over time, this person definitely, they'll see that you can be trusted. And showing vulnerability as well, we talked about that, that builds trust. Last bit, do what you believe is right, or doing what is right. Honesty will always be respected no matter how hard it is to do.
Yeah, great point.
Honesty will be respected. Sacrificing your values actually reduces trust. So, and that shows that maybe you have a lack of integrity, because when you know something is right and you have a certain standard of value, when you reduce that or you sacrifice that to, I guess, please people, that actually makes people look from a distance that, you know what, they sacrifice their own values to please someone, or to do something that they know isn't right. That actually causes people to look from a distance and be like, yeah, I don't know if that I can trust that, because you can't even uphold your own values. So you know what I mean? So people are like, yeah, nah. So, and the last thing that I want to say, yes, people are not trusted. Or they call it the yes man, the one who's always saying yes. Okay, just because you say yes, or just because you want to help, and this is really for those who, I'm gonna go a little bit of different direction just quickly. For those who have the gift of helps, okay, I want you to be able to learn to manage how much you're saying yes. Because just because that is a gift that God is giving you, you're a very helpful person, will do anything for anybody, will sacrifice your own time and all of that stuff. Just because you feel like doing all of that for someone doesn't mean you should be doing that all the time, because it doesn't actually build trust. It just seems like you're someone who just complies. And even
it builds a dependency is what it does.
right. And even when you know within yourself, but you know what, this is too much for me, I'm burning out, you're still going. That actually doesn't build trust. Like my husband said, it builds dependency. Learning to say no, having the courage to stand up for yourself and said, you know what, I would love to help you, but unfortunately, I don't have the time, or I don't have the capacity, or I'm in a different, I don't know, maybe you're.
But don't lie though. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No,
if you
not
if
lie.
you genuinely
Just say you
don't,
can't.
yeah, if you genuinely don't have the capacity, then you don't have the capacity. That's just the honest truth.
But some people don't know how to put that boundary. They'll
of
just
course.
still do
Yeah.
because you think that this is how you build healthy relationship, or you think this is how you're gonna get a relationship from this person, because
Or how
look,
you get favor
there's
from someone.
right, or favor, because they're like, look, this person, anything I want from this person's always saying yes, I can always count on this person. But what is that then doing to you? That is actually abuse. It's actually abuse. It's actually abuse. So please learn to say no. Being a yes man doesn't always demonstrate that you can be trusted. And that is me.
You know what else you should look for?
What?
Last thing, never trust people who say, "You can trust me." Like, you just run, run.
Why do you say that?
No, but like, never for people who
Yeah,
like
'cause it
volunteer
should be
the idea
demonstrated.
that it's the same thing we spoke of last week, right? There is reason why Jesus never actively spoke about love, because it was his full
demonstrated it.
demonstration. And trust is the same thing. The moment that you have to fall into the category of somebody actually saying
Keep
to you
saying,
that you
right.
can trust me, I probably
Red flag.
can't. Red flag, run for the hills. Don't trust
Yes,
them.
I get it.
I was about to say something. Don't trust these people. Like, do not, there are people that are, as you said in the beginning, in terms of the reasonings as to why people can't trust. Manipulation is a major thing. And people will just try and garner information, and they'll get close.
Right.
Just to attempt
another
to
thing.
know what to get.
That's
and
another
you need
thing.
to know, you
Yeah,
to
you
understand
gotta be wise with that.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that you need to pray that God gives you and reveals to you,
Discernment.
the idea of, okay, what is the reasoning for this individual attempting to get
Getting
close?
close, right.
Like, why?
Right.
The whole question, see, we make it a culture thing, but it's a real thing. That whole "who sent you" question.
Sorry, I just remembered something. Flashback.
Like, who sent you? Like, who?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's a real question. You asked that question.
Yes, I
Right?
did. That's why I'm laughing.
You asked
That
that
is why I'm
question.
laughing.
Yeah. No, for real. It's like, ask the question, man. When
Yeah.
these people come out of nowhere and it looks like they've got all the greatest intention in the world,
Yeah.
ask the question, Lord, who sent this person? Like, where they come from? What's the
Be
reason?
discerning.
Absolutely.
Be discerning about your relationships, because honestly, there are people out here, like you said, They're just trying to get close to get
Agendas.
information.
You can
They've
trust me.
different agendas. They're not trying to get close because they care. They just want to know your business.
You can trust me.
What?
No, they're creepy like that. That's what they sound like. You know, people they pull you close, right? And this is what they do. I've seen it before. I know this game. They pull you close and then you can trust me. They know it's creepy. It's like, I know these people. And they look you dead in the face as well. They look you in your eye, right? And they're like, listen, I know what you're going through, but you can trust me.
Oh my god!
You can tell me what you can trust. I'm like, no, Nick. Run for the hills, fam. Like, do not get entangled and ensnared.
Oh my god!
You will not fall into that trap. God's people will be wise. God's people will be.
Yes, please. Yes, that's the other thing. Like, pray for discernment, man.
100%.
Discern your relationships. But I guess what I want you to take away from this, because this is a whole month on love and love defined. Trust is important in building relationships. Just as love is, trust is also one of the foundations. You need you need love and you need trust to build healthy relationships. Take your time with it. You know, you don't have to rush. It's okay to acknowledge, again, like I said, that you are in a place where you maybe need some new friends and you maybe need to go out there, put yourself out there in order to build those relationships, but also be wise. Take your time, learn the person, take your time to grow with the person. You know, again, there really is no rush. I know society makes you feel like you have to get everything in one go, but realistically, that's not how life works. So yeah, take your time with it.
Amen. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you tonight.
Thank you, God.
We have one request, that you will begin to develop the ability that your people will be able to trust you in every area of every facet of their lives, that they will begin to lean, they begin to depend on you for their sustenance, for their hope, for their faith, for their relationships, everything they need from you, that they would know that they can depend on you.
Yes,
I pray, God, that you
yes,
begin
God.
to ignite the
Jesus,
river of trust
mighty
all
God.
over again within the hearts and in the minds of your people. Father, establish healthy relationships. Give people what they are desiring. Give them what their hearts desire, oh God, in the name of Jesus. And we say thank you, oh God, that you are doing this all over again. You are reviving the necessity of love in the hearts of your people all over again. We say thank you, oh God. Now I pray that you would heal that needs to be healed, and you would deliver where there needs to be deliverance, and that you would bring freedom, emancipation, and restoration where there needs to be emancipation and restoration. Oh God, we depend on you in this moment, and we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. Crew, thank you so much for sticking with us and hanging out. This was a long one, but we had so much to say. We could have continued.
But you know what? I don't mind it, because, guys, I missed you. I missed you guys.
She had a lot to say, but I loved it, man. It was a whole vibe. And so look, we'll be back this time, same time next week. You will see us right here. Come and hang out with us. Like and subscribe to all of that really cool YouTube stuff. Also,
cool YouTube stuff.
I know, right? Also, if you would love to leave an offering for us, we would be more than grateful to accept. Again, look, as usual, we know the financial pressures that a lot of people in our country right now are going through. It's part of the reason why there's a lot of things that we just do not charge for. And so we're more than happy to pour our resources into something like this. But if you would like to support us, we would be eternally grateful. In the description box of this video is our payment methods and all our links of how you can give safely. Julian and Shadeen, we are signing out. We love you guys so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of the night. And we will see you in 7 days' time.
Yes.
Peace.